Hi, it's Maya, and in this video I will be reviewing The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So The Starless Sea is like Shadow of the Wind set in Narnia, with every character being dark academic. I got caught up in the various plot lines of Starless Sea and the atmosphere. I finished this book in a few days, and this is why I want to review it now. So how the review will go is I'll just mention the quick brief summary and general likes and dislikes of the book, and then I will go more deeply into the writing, and then the plot, and then the characters, and lastly I will mention a few scenes that really stuck with me. A review is spoiler free, but before I start with explaining of which scenes I really liked, I will give you a warning so you can stop the video then. Okay, now let's get into the general summary and likes and dislikes of this book. So in The Starless Sea, we're following our main protagonist, Zachary, as he stumbles upon a mysterious book of short stories, one of which is a story of his life. So since this book contains the episode of Zachary when he was 11 and stumbled upon a painted door on a wall, which he never opened and regretted since because he believed that those doors were magical, and they were. Since he never opened those doors, he feels like he gets another chance with this book to find out finally about these mysterious doors and whether they really lead to magical worlds, which is where the Narnia aspect comes in. And the Shadow of the Wind aspect is when Zachary goes on to do more research about this book and meets secret societies, a lot of strange, mysterious, magical things along the way, and he meets so many unique, beautiful characters. Zachary's narrative is mixed with other short stories that he read in this book, so we see other characters and their own stories intermingled with the main narrative. It's very interesting to see how in the end they all kind of come together. Now, general likes and dislikes of the book are: first, likes. I loved the atmosphere of the book. I loved how the storytelling element played into all of this, and just the general metaphor of stories, and just the idea of this Starless Sea being this secret library society kind of. This was so unique to me. What I did not like was the references to various popular literature like Harry Potter and Narnia, which, you know, it kind of belittled Erin Morgenstern's own magical world. And also I didn't like the video game references because of also this magical realism aspect was kind of, I don't know, it kind of crashes with the video games aspect. All of the other things in the book were pretty top shelf, so I didn't mind these small things. I also loved how every scene was so aesthetic, and I have so many tattoo ideas from this book, especially a bee. I will have to tattoo a bee somewhere. Like, I'm still undecided, but I think like this bee, sword, and key, are those the elements? Bee, key, and sword? I think so. I already forgot, but I think I want to like tattoo them on my forearm or something. I'll see. Tattoo is a big thing, but this book definitely is so aesthetic that every scene could be tattooed somewhere on your body. So I'll just say a few sentences generally about the writing, plot, and characters. So about the writing, I thought the narration felt like those sleepcasts from Headspace, that meditation app, if you know what I mean. They were even more picturesque than pictures, in my opinion. Then we have the plot aspect, which was so engrossing because we have many stories that come together in increments throughout the main Zachary's narrative, and in the end they all kind of come together and connect into one narrative, and it was so interesting and so suspenseful to read that, and I loved that aspect. Lastly, about the characters, I thought every character was a dark academic because they loved knowledge, they loved books and reading, they got entangled in these secret societies, and they were also kind of lost in the world, which was definitely relatable to me. The main character being a graduate student, and I'm a graduate student, and it was just, we're all in this together. They were really unique and relatable. Okay, so now I will go deeper into writing, plot, and characters. First, with the writing, as I said, very picturesque, very beautiful descriptions, and the writing is definitely the center of the book. The atmosphere is definitely very magical. Every scene has some kind of physics bending thing happening in it that kind of brings more magic into the world, and I know some people didn't like how incredible some scenes were, but to me this is kind of the point of magical realism. Still, I do have to say the same problem that I had with the Night Circus I had here. Most of the descriptions were really picturesque, yes, but they relied heavily on the sight. There were some smell, hearing, and tasting happening, but not enough for my taste. I like more of this all-encompassing experience. But yeah, the sight, like the descriptions were really beautiful, but again, relied heavily on sight alone. Still, the writing was very lyrical. It definitely reminded me of the contemporary poetry type of prose. This is, I think, says a lot about how her storytelling and descriptions and prose is beautiful. Okay, next up we have the plot. So I think the point of this book is just not to be in suspense of what happens next, but to just be mindful and in the scene, because the descriptions, as I said, are so central to the whole book. The plot takes the second spot after the descriptions. A lot of people said that there's no plot, and even Erin Morgenstern herself said that the plot is her biggest problem when writing, because she doesn't know where the story will go. And in this book I really liked it, because that was kind of the point. We were all lost along with Zachary. We didn't know where we would end up. And once again, I adored the many narratives throughout the book, the many short stories that were entangled with each other, and how some were finished, some were left unfinished, and each chapter would be a different narrative, so it would be really interesting to follow. But also you will get into one story and then you will get into the other story and you will want to know what happened to the other one, but also this one is so interesting, and these little clues throughout some story about the other story, and in the end it all comes together, and I loved that aspect of it, and it was really beautifully done. And lastly, we have the characters, who I think were pretty passive in this book, but I know we all hate passive characters probably, but in this book it was well done. Why? Because characters were passive in that they didn't really have choice where they would end up. They just got thrown into this various complex magical context, which is definitely why I consider them passive in this way. However, they were really lovable, and I was really rooting for them, because the way that they have to pull themselves out of these magical situations that they fell into, how they kind of saved themselves, gave them the dimensions and enough of the active parts for them to not be just puppets, but to be real multi-dimensional characters that you love and root for. And as I said, every character was hungry for knowledge, they liked reading, they appreciated books, they were definitely dark academia aesthetics. We have a lot of characters from different stories, they're all unique, and they all kind of connect to each other in some kind of spoilery ways, so I will leave the character section here now. Just know that they're beautiful and worthy of being followed throughout the book. Okay, and now we've come to the last section, which is just me gushing about some of the beautiful scenes in this book, and there will definitely be spoilers in these scenes. I will mention 4 or 5 scenes or so, so if you haven't read the book, go read the book right now. What are you waiting for? Like, literally, what are you waiting for? This is such a good book. It is an amazing book. I love it. Go read it and stop the video, don't get spoiled. If you are interested in knowing about the scenes, you can get spoiled if that's your thing. I don't judge. Also, sometimes spoilers help to just focus on the book, not the ending. Also, if you've read the book and wanna just enjoy the scenes with me, and comment down below as I'm talking about the scenes so we can talk about the scenes together, just continue watching the video. Okay, now I will go into the scenes. The first scene I want to talk about is the first scene with the pirate, because this is the scene that got me into the book right away. As I stumbled upon this scene, I knew right away that this is the book for me. This is the book that I will love. This is the book I will give 5 stars to. Right away I knew it, because I loved when characters just question their place in the story, like that guard of the pirate questioned his place. He was like, what makes me a guard? And this pirate, what makes him a pirate? And I love that. I love this subtle existential crisis of the character. The other thing that was just bone-chilling to the bone, to the veins, goosebumps, just what was that story about the moon and the human? Let's just take a breath. Let's just appreciate that beautiful freaking story, the foreshadowing done right. We stan the foreshadowing elements. The last sentence of this story was such a twist for me. I did not realize that this woman was the moon. For no mortal can love the moon, not for long. And I was like, she actually is the moon, and she met the sun, and now she's in love with the mortal. And this is where the story ended, and I was like, you better be continued, story, you better be continued. Okay, next scene that I adored was when Zachary sees Dorian and him on the painting, you know, him holding the sword, his chest opened, his heart is out, it's burning, and Dorian is beside him, and I knew that this was a clue of what's gonna happen next in the book, but I just could not figure out what this heart meant. Does it mean that Zachary will die? This picture was so picturesque. I know if I saw the picture with my eyes, it wouldn't be as beautiful as reading the description of this picture. It was absolutely phenomenal. Then we have the scene that I read and reread a dozen times. The scene when Dorian kills Zachary. And you know that moment when Zachary is finally on the beach, he's so relieved, he kind of gets a heartache from how relieved and how much he loves Dorian when he sees him, when he finally finds him. And then he looks down and he sees it's not just a heartache. Dorian literally pierced Zachary's heart with a sword. Moment of going from realizing that something that from relief you thought it was over, you thought it was done, and then no, you're actually dead. Now we have my absolute favorite scene in the entire book, and it's when Dorian talks about Allegra's death. So Allegra was Dorian's kind of mother figure, but she was also not a good person, and their relationship wasn't a good, healthy relationship. So when she dies, and when this captain asks Dorian what did he know Allegra, and the way Dorian answers is just bone heart shattering. I don't know. Did you know her? The captain asks. Yes, Dorian answers. He does not add that he has known this woman for half of his life, that she was the closest thing to a mother he ever had, that he loved her and hated her in equal measures, that moments ago he would have killed her with his own hands, and yet standing here now, he feels a loss the depths of which he cannot explain. He feels untethered. He feels lost. He feels free. That last part, he feels free. And finally we have the scene when Dorian just sitting by Zachary's body and grieving, and then he just remembers that he has the Fate's heart. Zachary is dead, and then we have the heart, and it's not far-fetched, it's not convenient. When it happened, I realized this was the only way it could have gone, and no other ending would have satisfied me. A heart kept by fate until it is needed, and it was definitely needed. I loved that solution. It was, as I said, the only way it could have gone. The only way. And no story truly ever ends as long as it is told. This is how everything ends, everything wraps up, and I loved that quote, I love it still, and I thought this book was just a perfectly rounded up story. There are some things that aren't explained, but I think that's normal. I really don't mind it. So yeah, this is one of my favorite books. Please tell me in the comments what you thought of the book, or whether you would be interested in the book. And all of the links to my other social media are in the description. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you wish to do so. And I will see you in one of my next videos. Thank you so much and have a nice day.